Working for Arup for over 20 years, I continue to be inspired by Arup's enduring values and very much influenced by the depth of thinking on design throughout the built environment. Standing here in King's Cross, beneath this beautiful waterfall-like structure, I'm struck by how his enduring values have passed down to us through 5 generations. And this feat of engineering stands as testimony to his philosophy of total design. Most of us in the industry will be aware of him as a prolific thinker who was ahead of his time, and a few of us will be familiar with his key speech that eloquently encapsulates his values. I was amazed to discover so many more of his essays, which have long been forgotten about, but which are stored carefully away at the archive at Cambridge University. It took me about a year to read some 20 essays, by which time I began to feel duty-bound to share his thinking and wisdom and approach to total design with other professionals. At first, I struggled to think how I could make these papers easily accessible. And after thinking through a number of ideas, I felt these papers should be published in a book. Many of these essays were delivered through his lifetime as speeches. And so to capture the spirit and essence of Ove's speaking, we invited actor Bernard Holley to read excerpts from this book.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am aware of and grateful for the honor you show me by asking me to address you on the subject of future problems facing the designer. I'm afraid, however, that you may have overestimated my powers. Like the Danish cartoonist Storm Peterson, I find it very difficult to prophesy, very difficult indeed, and especially about the future. To know how to build is all very well, but to build what? Which people? What sort of life should we aim for? We are forgetting that people, or human relations, are the most important things in life. A sunny day can be spoiled by a hard word. Human kindness, love, can change sorrow into joy. No theory, no ideology, no set of rules can deal with human complexity, human sensitivity, or vulnerability. This is something I somehow know. Perhaps this is the real truth. But to turn this truth into a precept for living is not easy. Yet this is the essential problem facing mankind. If we can't improve on what we do now, the outlook is grim. I am no expert, but you could say perhaps that I believe in trying. I need not tell you that building is a very important activity in our society because it provides the shell which houses most of our activities and makes our kind of life possible. I think that our environment has an enormous influence on us. It is a constant source of happiness or misery. And to get the environment we would like to have, instead of one which is forced on us by expediency or by economic forces which we fail to control, is surely a very worthy object to which we all subscribe, even if we do not always agree on what we would like to have. We must take into account the wastage of scarce resources, the costs of preventing pollution, the spoliation of our environment, the harm done to fauna and flora. In fact, all the things people have warned us about. That we must stop glorifying in waste seems obvious. We must preserve our heritage, conserve our resources, build for permanence, not for scrap. We can only get all the things we would like to have by making effective use of the new knowledge and resources at our disposal. We must do more with less, and this is exactly what engineering, what technology means. Designing is the key to everything which is made or built. Our designs make our environment, and this in turn makes us, partly at least. The designer wants to change nature to suit his convenience. He's trying to solve a particular problem here and now. but his problem is underdefined. He must choose. The bad solutions come easy to hand. The good he must search for and work for. A process where imagination, intuition, and invention are of vital importance. And that is the designer's real métier, which is his real problem, to find the best solution, or, as you can never be sure there isn't a better solution, to find at least a good solution, a solution of quality. And this is a problem in more than one sense. For what is quality? What is goodness? That is the problem which is almost as complicated as solving the riddles of the universe. Quality must be taken into account our reasons for building. We must never forget that we are building for people. It is useful to distinguish between three kinds of quality, according to the three things we require of a building, namely, 1, that it should fulfill its function in the best possible way. 2, that it should not tax our resources more than necessary. 3, that it should enhance our environment rather than spoil it. The ideal is to combine all three kinds of quality, but unfortunately, they nearly always clash. Every design is therefore a compromise between the three kinds of excellence. And the problem is to strike the right balance, the balance appropriate to the task in hand. It is a composite, all-round, comprehensive quality we must seek. The best possible compromise between conflicting aims, wholeness, which is really nothing less than a closer adaptation to human needs. The brief cannot define quality, but it can prevent quality from being produced by the designer, and it often does, either by being so vague that the designer has not really understood the client's needs and therefore comes up with the wrong answer, or more often by being too detailed, thus preempting design decisions which ought to be taken by the designer, or which at least ought to be integrated with other design decisions. It is wrong to treat brief and design as separate documents. The brief and the basic design decisions should result from collaboration between client and designer. The same intimate relationship should exist between design and execution. The designer must know where he is going. He cannot design unless he can judge whether his design can be built, how it can be built, and roughly how much it costs. Otherwise, he proceeds blindfold. True economy demands that the design indicates a practical way of building. There is much more integration to be done. Jobs are getting larger and more complex, and the total design is split between dozens of different professions, experts, manufacturers, and contractors, each at best pursuing his own particular kind of quality. Communication between them is inadequate and not much concerned with rational appraisal of the design. Who is going to do the integration? The data, the knowledge required, can be found not in one person, but in a number of persons. Specialization is the way civilization moves forward. And perhaps it is the way it will destroy itself. Faced with a complex entity, we split it up, catalogue the parts, study and develop them separately, and then fail to put them back together again. That is what happens to buildings. How do we then contrive to produce the synthesis, the artistic or human unity that alone will ensure quality? That is the question. And it is much more difficult than most people realize. Teamwork is the answer. Successful teamwork requires that each member of the team understands what the others are doing and respects them, and that they are united in a common purpose and have the same desire to create what I elsewhere have called total architecture. The term total architecture implies that all relevant design decisions have been considered together and have been integrated into a whole by a well-organized team empowered to fix priorities. Total architecture does not mean that cost is neglected. It only means that quality is not forgotten. The only hope I see of combining low cost with quality is to spend more time on the design. Saving money is done by better design, better job organization, and less waste, not by more accounting. It is better designs we need, not better costs. The best designs are produced by good engineers with plenty of engineering knowledge and experience, and plenty of imagination, ingenuity, and inventive capacity, who take the trouble to gather all the relevant information and keep on worrying about the design until they are completely satisfied with the results. And perhaps we should throw in a bit of luck and an interesting problem to solve. My advice to engineers is to be good engineers first of all. A brilliant engineering solution is quite likely to be praised for artistic qualities, where an attempt to force the design into a preconceived artistic form will fail miserably. The natural instinct of the true designer is to ask himself, how can I do this thing better than it has been done before? Let's forget how it is done normally. By concentrating on the essence of what is needed and the most direct of all the ways of achieving it, perhaps I can find a simpler, cheaper, and better solution, fitting into the surroundings better, pleasing the people I am serving. If these aims clash, as they will, perhaps if I try harder, some insight, some idea will come to me in the middle of the night. I am, of course, talking about creative design, not about ordinary routine design where not much effort is applied. Excellent follows from intelligent application. You don't get it for nothing. In the sphere of practical thinking, then, what I believe in is to be involved in what you do, to strive for quality. Otherwise, work becomes a burden when it could be a joy. To do one's job well is good for one's self-respect and good for one's fellow beings. And it can't do any harm, as far as I can see, even if it doesn't solve all the problems of mankind.